Hi, we're talking today about using the precedents, the templates available to you. For franchisees and staff, we generally transfer them using Dropbox, so they should be updated on a regular basis, or at least whenever they change. We tend to go through phases of adding a lot at some stage and then none for a while, but it should be automatically synchronized. Day-to-day documents, administrative documents is letters to send to the clients. We've done a different video on that, and letters to send to the opposing attorneys and just various letters and responses. The one we're going to look at today is drafter documents. So when you're drafting legal papers, what do you do? So here's everything you should need. I mean, I say that there's always some new situation arriving at each time, but let's look at some of the ones that you use most often. There's SFTL, selling for too little. So there's the summons. So the summons is when we sue the bank. Usually clients are receiving summons from the bank. Now all the red parts is the bit that you actually fill in, that you change. Try and make sure that the comments, you get rid of comments if you see them, delete comment. It's not supposed to be, otherwise it will print with the comment. And so you fill in all the bits in red, you change them to your client's details, and then you save them as that. So you've got heads of argument. That's maybe should do them in order. This is later in the process, but that's when all the legal argument for the advocates to argue in court. Answering affidavits or pleas when the client has to respond to a summons or an founding affidavit. Notice of intention to defend is probably the easiest one. And there's a notice of intention to defend, notice of intention to oppose. We sometimes also do a discovery application when we do this, but I'm going to put that, I think I'll put that in a separate folder. When we do a notice of intention to defend or oppose, you also add a discovery application. So we'll talk about that in different videos. But it's in this folder because it's done at the same time often. But the notice of intention to defend oppose is something you do immediately that the client gets a summons. Otherwise they might get judgment by default. Opposing default judgment is for removal of bar. If you don't answer a summons by a certain amount of time, they put you under bar. We have to bring an application to oppose. That doesn't happen that often. Pleas and answering affidavits, actually this should also be in there. So that's what we're discussing, when you have to actually answer. There's one for resisting eviction. So when you get a thing from the client to say, okay, they're wanting to evict me, then this is something like your answering affidavit that says no, you can't evict us because of this. Rescissions, they've already got a default judgment, we're trying to reverse it. There also is the case of if you need to send to the sheriff or to the other attorneys to say the execution must be stopped because the rescission's pending, then this is where the document is that talks about that. COSA versus body corporate. So you know also that's in drafter documents. With any rescission, you need a notice of motion, then you need the affidavit as well. So one of these two. So if you're rescinding the main judgment, then it's this one. And if you're rescinding an eviction order, it's this one. And the notice of motion would be similar for both. There's particular to reverse mortgage schemes when there's somebody trying to take somebody's house when the person's been conned out of their house in a reverse mortgage scheme. Opposing summary judgment, what usually happens, of course, is people they'll raise a summons. We'll then put in a notice of intention to defend. they'll then bring an application for summary judgment saying we have no actual defence, and so we then have to use one or the other. So there's one for ABSA, and there's one for non-ABSA. Insolvency, that's an opinion for the police, fraudulent explanations, but there should be something in there ultimately to say we're wanting to reverse this sequestration, it was illegal. So they'll grow with time. Less used, it's got lots and lots that are used in different agreements. So generally you'll talk to legal about that and they'll say, well, there's one in less used precedents, you can use that. You become familiar with time. But this is a folder you need to become familiar with, either as staff or as franchisee, because these are basically the tools of your trade. Notice the motion to stay execution in the Magistrates Court. This is a new one that we're using at the moment. Okay,